Thank you for joining us wherever you are. This podcast episode is brought to you by the Old Ways Actual Play team. This actual play uses the 7th edition Call of Cthulhu tabletop role-playing game rules by Chaosium. This actual play is performed by adults and in an adult setting. While we try very hard to stick to languages for all ages, listeners should know that this podcast may include mature themes. All content, including names, places, events, companies, and etc., that may bear resemblance to entities living or dead, is strictly coincidental. My name is Michael Diamond, and for tonight's game, I will be your keeper. Thank you for joining us again on another episode of the Old Ways podcast. I'm your keeper, Keeper Michael, and we return to Masks of Nyarlathotep for a special episode. And so we're going to draw our spotlight up again on my guest tonight, who is
Alex, playing Sam Baron.
Yes, and Sam, you have a few items on your list we're going to attempt to deal with after our last spotlight episode.
It's always so much to do.
It truly is. So it is evening after leaving your newest, I suppose, employee, worker, friend. No, friend's way too close and intimate of a word. But you've left Dr. Gafour's house. You've managed to acquire an auto, and you have done a little scouting.
Yes, and just to be clear as to how Sam is planning on approaching the situation, he has a tool that has been cooling itself for such an occasion. So he will be assembling the tranq rifle and taking the time to, now I believe there were either 6 or 8 cartridges for it. And I was under the impression that something about this size would put down about a rhino. So I'm thinking I could probably use something about half the dose to affect a man-sized man.
Yeah.
I don't want to kill them outright with the tranq dart.
Sure.
So I will utilizing my understanding of the tranquilizer itself, make sure that the cartridges are dosed, and I will offload some of the toxin to one of my bottles in my chemistry kit.
Seems reasonable enough to me. So the address that Luca gave you is, again, in Cairo proper. And after some scouting around, you come to the rough approximation of where it's at. It's actually in the British section, or what is the former ruling section of Cairo when Egypt was under the rule of the British. Having recently cast off that bond and become much more their own city and much more their own nation with their own ruler, the lingering fingers of the British Empire still paint a pretty heavy picture across the landscape here. And this address seems to be, at least from your knowledge of the location, it seems to be a member of the British Royal Trade Service.
Once I kind of get an understanding as to where I am and who Luca has an interest in, I'm going to take a bit of a breath of almost relief. Yeah, I think I'll start there. I have to make a breath of relief, and then I will scout the grounds, and I'm going to do so relatively casually, depending on how large the area is, because I haven't. Right now, I'm just kind of walking the streets in kind of mundane fashion. So yeah, I'll take a look at the address, see what I'm size it up. How big of a space we're talking about? How big's the house?
Well, the house is actually a fairly decent size. It has courtyards, has quite an outdoor courtyard. It likely has an internal courtyard as well. So these types of residential buildings are were likely built during the Ottoman Empire era. So when the Ottomans, in some ways, held sway over Egypt. And this sort of stylistic features here, right? So they have some sort of an archway or a bent entrance. That's usually the first entrance that you go into, so you can quite easily see which one is the main one. It's also staffed with what look like British troops. So that is an active portion of your investigative arm here. So you're seeing bodies and rifles and actual troops. Beyond that, you'd be able to see from the outside looking in that there's an inner courtyard here, likely a gardens, shrubs. I mean, they have green space, and that alone inside of Cairo is fairly rare. It's not impossible. Obviously, there's Ezbekaya Gardens and some of the other larger royal houses have green spaces, but it seems this British head of British trade lives a fairly comfortable life. Now, the stark reality of this is that this location that you've got, that your travel through here was through some fairly, we'll say, pauperish districts. And it really doesn't take too long in your own mind to size up the fact that the land here isn't being used to its fullest. It's being wasted on opulence, and likely inside is full of baubles which were stolen from, any number of local dig sites or former Egyptian treasure houses.
Can you tell me is there a wall surrounding the place?
Absolutely.
How tall is it, if I may ask?
8 to 10 feet.
And is this opulent bastard so fancy as to have pottery adorning the walls as well?
Probably some
kind of
sort of it.
I'm just keeping these things in mind. So what I think I'd like to do is I work best from an elevated position for the most part. So I want to get a better view of the place.
Yeah, it's really the only way you're seeing what you're seeing at this point. The exterior walls are always built here to a height that ensures that domestic interior spaces cannot be overlooked, right? Intrusions are discouraged. And so you have managed to find a few houses away. You have managed to find an upper balcony, which you've sort of inserted yourself into. It almost reminds you of the spot, in a way, in London. You can tell here,
sense.
though, that this house that you're looking down into, all of the windows are grilled, right? There's just some sort of covering there. It obscures any line of vision you might have directly by just what they would consider architecture. Windows in the upper floor, however, are fairly large. And so these are something that would emit light and air. Some of these windows are almost as large as doors. And some of the windows almost look like they're doors. But the purpose of them, obviously, is to let in a lot of airflow. But they also don't...
And be large.
Yeah, they also don't overlook any neighboring courtyards or terraces because clearly you wouldn't want to potentially have any sort of impropriety thrown your way based on you looking out your second floor windows down on someone else's courtyard.
Are there power lines or anything like that in this area of town?
Not that you see. At least at first. It takes you a few minutes to trace where some of the major power lines come in and out. It's a little strange here because of the architecture of the streets themselves try to obscure some of that from view. But after a while, you see some of the telltale lines that run through the back. It's also nighttime, so that doesn't help either.
Sure. Is there any external lighting? Like on the grounds? Lamps or torches?
There's probably torches, yeah.
Okay. Do they look electric or gas?
They're probably gas.
Okay. So what I would like to do, since it's evening, I'm going to take my time here. I want to get an idea as to the number of guards that I see patrolling. I want to also see if there are any other buildings other than the main house on the property?
Mm-hmm.
Whether there are any maybe tool sheds, or if there's I don't know if there would be a stable, how big this area is, but if there are any outlying buildings that aren't the main house.
Yeah, if there's one thing that Europeans love, it's horses.
Oh, of
So
course.
there's definitely a stable here, well maintained, and probably 3 or 4, you figure, horses. I mean, what else would a proper British, we wouldn't say noble because the man isn't any sort of nobility, but what sort of proper English gentleman wouldn't have a horse to ride? He wouldn't want to be found walking through the streets, right?
Does it look like the stable has an extended loft, or is there a barn as well?
It's just an extended loft. There's no barn here. That's probably a little too European for Cairo's tastes.
And is the barn, not the barn, but is the loft higher than the wall, or is it even with the wall? And how close is it to the wall?
It's not. It's probably within 2 or 3 meters from the wall. It's not higher than the wall.
Okay.
It's probably just about in line with the wall.
And can I ask which side of the property it's on? Like if there's a cardinal direction, east, west, or south?
Oh, it would be down the west side of the house.
Okay. And I'm guessing the house is the house kind of central, or is it toward one of the other walls?
The house itself is on the north side.
Okay. So yeah, I'm going to get out one of my fruits. I'm going to chew on it, get out my little notebook, and I'm going to do some watching and munching. And I'm going to try to locate a pot on the wall of the east wall. Something, either a pot or like a statue or something that might break on the east side. And I will also kind of keep an eye on whether or not these guards traverse the area near the stable, or where they tend to converge, or what their patrols look like, or how many they are specifically. So those are kind of the things that I'm eyeballing for the next couple hours, probably.
Okay. So in a couple hours, you probably get a fairly decent rundown. You believe that there are about 6 outdoor guards.
Ooh.
There are 2 positioned at the more front of the property. There are 2 at the gate, the actual break in the wall line where visitors or those who are coming home would enter. And then you notice that there are 2 house guards that occasionally rove the property, up to and including perhaps one that might have a special interest in the stables.
Okay.
In a matter of an hour or so, he goes out twice to it, and he stays there for a couple of minutes, and then he comes back on his rounds.
I definitely keep an eye on that one. Is there anything else that kind of separates him from the others?
No, they're all dressed relatively the same. Okay. You can tell by his movements when he leaves the stables, though, that he is trying to get back into roving patrol pattern. He is aware that he has stayed too long in the stables, and so he seems to cut the normal patrol line to make up for the time.
Sure. And other than the guards, do I see anyone else on the property?
You would see servants. There's 2 or 3 of them that in the nighttime hours here are just tending to a couple of things. Why don't you give me a hard spot hidden roll?
So that'll be a hard success, 18 under 75.
You spy through one of these grilled windows that the stable has a small lamplight, and you kind of adjust your body enough to take advantage of the light that's there. And inside that stable, there seems to be a small stable hands, I suppose bedroom is the best, some sort of living space in there. You can tell because they're eating.
In the stable?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's like sectioned off.
Sure.
Likely so that way they can be at the beck and call of whomever needs a horse whenever they need it.
And that's where the guard went?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And as far as the power lines are concerned, are there the west wall? So are there any lines running near, adjacent to, or on the west wall?
No, they all come up from the south and hit nearby the we'll say southwest corner of the property line where the wall is, and then come in off of that. It's
gonna be a little off limits for me then.
It's a little bit of a walk there.
Well, it's also super exposed if there's 2 guards at the front gate and there's like 6 roamers on the property. I'm just not a fan of. Bolt cutters are probably going to stay here. All right. So once I am confident enough in their patterns, and I haven't seen who I would assume is the owner of this residence yet.
You have not.
So I'm going to assume they're inside. Is there a vehicle on the property?
You don't see one.
Does it look like the front drive gets used by a car? Or cars?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Well, it would be very convenient if they weren't here. I will finish up my snack and thank the owner of the house that I've been perched on for being quiet and not getting in my way.
Mm-hmm.
And then I will get down to my essentials. So basically my darker underclothing plus my harness. I'm not going to tote the rifle. I'm actually going to carry the darts themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I will check the rigging on my machete to make sure it's nice and secure. It's not going to slide around. And I will check the back holster of my shotgun. I'll check my ammo, make sure everything's clean, and then strap my goggles on top of my head. And I will move from the roof and begin skulking until, I'm guessing it's like the middle of the night now, right?
Yeah.
So the guard numbers haven't changed. They're still all there.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I'm going to begin heading to the east wall where that pot is. So what I'm looking for is some sort of something that I can break on either the far east or southeast part of the property that would make enough noise to draw attention.
Okay, that's fair.
So there's like a small piece of statuary or what have you.
Okay, what are you going to break it with?
So I was just going, if it's on the wall, I was just going to pull it off.
Ah, okay. Yeah, easy enough to do. I assume you would like to not be caught doing so?
Correct. Would be ideal. Hence the skulking.
You will employ stealth for me.
Yes. I will employ stealthing. My stealth is an extreme success at 3 out of 95.
Well, that's a good roll because I rolled a 10.
I will take it. I will not push.
That's probably a good idea. You have an extreme anyway, so just on the basis of that it's an extreme versus their hard, you win automatically. So you find a way, I suppose, either a creative leap or perhaps with the butt of the rifle.
My plan was to use my rope and grapple and snag it and then yank it.
Oh, yeah. Easy.
Basically, before it hits the ground, I start moving around the south side of the wall.
Okay.
And I'm going to cross. Basically, I'm going to run opposite the direction they should be going until I get to the west wall, where I will begin my process of making it to the barn. Or not the barn, but the stable.
It clatters, obviously. The pot shatters. Potted plants inside and whatnot go spilling all over the place. You hear voices start up from inside the wall. People ask that to get checked out, find out what happened. It seems more perfunctory. They don't seem actually aggressive about it. So you're going south, and then like across the street?
So, well, that wasn't going south. So if I went to I guess it would have been the northeast wall.
Okay.
I would have gone to the opposite, like the furthest corner, right from where I was.
Sure.
On the east side. Break the pot, run across the far wall, which I guess for me would be the north wall.
Yep.
To the west side where the stable is. So that's my plan, is going around the north wall. So around the back of the property. And I will stay low next to the wall.
Okay. You stay low. You hear someone, I should say, come out because it's too dark for you to really get definition, but you see a light move and that area gets lit up for a little while.
Continue my hustle.
You start to hear two men having a conversation and you're hustling and your plan is to go over the wall at that point?
Once I get to the west wall, I will hop up and grab the ledge and get a nose over it so I can see, make sure that they are either occupied or over in that area, or at least looking in that direction. And then I would get to the wall adjacent to the barn. I keep calling it the barn. The wall closest to the stable, so that
Sure.
so that they can't see me go over.
Okay, go ahead and give me a climb roll to get to the top of the wall.
That is a 1, good sir.
I see that. All right. So you reach up with one arm and obviously your left arm, not your right arm.
Mm-hmm.
You reach up with your left arm and you grab a hold just of with your four fingers, grab a hold of the top of the wall and pull your body up. You do a one-armed pull up. You have some pretty easy stone here with your feet to leverage onto, and you peek over and you see that there are a couple of gents who are looking at the far side of the property there where there's been a disturbance. And you have a nice clean and clear pathway. And for your critical success, I will award you 5 luck.
Oh, yes. I will continue my upward movement and just kind of hug the top of the wall with my body and slither down very quietly.
Yeah, it's fairly simple. You get into the interior yard. You have a good view of the stables now. This also gives you an additional view of what's going on in the stables and that light, which is now much closer. You can see that there are 2 people in the stables currently. One is the pathing guard, who was there before. And the other is the person working the stables. The 2 of them are very close to one another. Neither one of them is doing their job.
But they're both putting in work.
In a way. So you mentally calculate that you have half the guards busy. And so that makes it a little easier.
Sure. So knowing this and knowing that basically the west side of the property is blind because this guard obviously isn't paying attention, the other 2 are looking that way, and the other ones are on the inspecting, I will approach the west wall of the house.
All right. You approach it. This would be the wall closest to the River Nile.
Okay.
The house seems fairly quiet. You hear a phonograph, maybe, from inside, some sort of music is playing.
So if I were fancy, my bedroom would probably be on the top floor.
Oh, yeah.
I look up.
It's a 3-floor structure. It's not at all difficult to climb the outside of it. I mean, there's the building has been around since, well, it's Turkish inspired, so there are handholds everywhere.
Oh, lovely, lovely stone building. I will thank the architect, and I will quietly begin an ascent. I'll use the corner of the house to give myself a bit more, to help shore up that arm.
Yeah.
I'll make sure that my boots are nice and tight.
You see an architectural touch here on this side of the house. It looks like it's a mashrabiyah. It's a perforated wooden screen that goes over windows. It's stylized and quite nice. It's brown in color. Imagine it as a series of screens, but big ones.
I see.
Right. So imagine a window screen made of smaller screens, and there are little hatches that you can open, smaller ones and bigger ones, and it has quite a distinctive look to it. It's likely that that's fairly close on the second floor to some sort of internal courtyard.
Well, I'm definitely not going to climb it because that would make me way too visible.
Oh, yeah.
Is it lit inside too?
There is some light coming out of it, yeah.
If that's the second floor, then I will make note of its location relative to where it is in the house, because I'm assuming at this point it's kind of an open area.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like if I need a rapid exit, that thing will be really handy. It's definitely not my way in. So I will ascend further.
Go ahead and give me a climb roll.
So only a 46 under 59, so not as spectacular as the last one, but I'll take it.
Still a success. You make your way up past the second floor, and on the third floor of the building, you can see that there's some flat roofs here, and then just in the center of the place, there's a long section on the main house, which of course has many windows to it. It's actually one of the taller houses here in the area. Not the tallest, obviously, but one of them. And there are a few lights on in there. And this is where you hear this kind of strange musical sound coming from.
I will take a beat and hold my breath, like really listen.
You take a breath and you really listen intently towards that section of the house. And you hear a sound, like some sort of smack. It's definitely a high-pitched sound. It's quick.
I should probably narrow a bit.
And then there's another. And another. It's dim, but it's there.
Can I tell what direction it's coming from?
It's definitely coming from inside this third floor space.
Okay. Basically, I'm asking so that I know whether or not I can move around the exterior of the third floor to get closer to it, or whether I'd have to just go in.
You're going to have to enter into space.
Then I will look for the most unlit point of entry.
Certainly. Yep, there it is. It's going to be a little bit of a movement to get over to it. But it's not impossible by any means. Just crouch low and move.
I will take stock of where the guards are now.
So looking back over your shoulder, you can see that the guards that were investigating the pot have gone back to their normal positions. The guard who stopped in the stables is tucking in his shirt and trying to get back to his roving patrol. And past that, everything else seems pretty standard.
Okay. Anything from the stable hand? Is that light still on in there?
No, the light's off now.
Interesting. Okay. Then I will move to I'll move to the darkest spot on the interior. And is it a window? Is it a door? Is it a patio, balcony?
It's a door, but I should say that in the respects to it's a door-sized window.
Oh,
and so it's one of these doors that looks like a door but is actually a window. Someone could step out here onto this area, and they likely do to air out rugs or something like that.
Yeah, this doesn't really look like a leisure spot. I don't see any chairs or anything out here.
No, you hear that sound again.
I'll inspect the hinges and any what look like closures on this thing.
Okay. I mean, they're worn. They're likely a little rusty.
Does this window appear open or locked?
You're going to have to do a little work to get it open.
Okay. Then I will reach into my vest and extract my tools, my jeweler's tools, and other miscellaneous small metal files and stabby, pokey things.
Certainly.
And I will begin dissecting this thing until I can get inside.
That would be a lock-picking roll.
So it has a hard success, 3367.
It doesn't take you long. Really no more than 2 or 3 rounds worth of time, and you find your way inside, or at least find the method by which it can be unlocked, and thus unlock it.
Okay. I flip the latch, and I keep it closed, and I will kind of keep one hand on it while I tuck everything away. And I will listen once again as I kind of relieve the pressure on the window, and I'm going to let kind of the motion of my hand moving away from it open it as opposed to yanking on it.
Certainly.
And I'm going to listen and feel for friction, squeaking, anything.
Yeah, you come through to the moment to where it might give you some friction, and you ease it just slightly enough. You almost seem to lift the door just slightly, so that way it doesn't move along the same hinge pattern as it normally would. And you obscure and kind of ground out that hinge sound into the night in Cairo. Looking inside on the space, which is naturally where your eyes are going to go when it's open enough for you to move in, this third floor section here looks like it's fairly open, but the immediate space you're in is a hallway.
So I'm not planning on using this exit again, so I will pull the window shut behind me, and whatever mechanism was used to close it, I'll just close it.
Okay. You close the door and you're inside.
I'm going to listen for interior patrols.
Okay. You wouldn't pick any up on the 3rd floor?
Okay. That's what I want to hear.
You hear something that you don't want to hear, and that is the snap of leather.
Oh, I know what's going on now. I don't know the context, but I know that sound.
Just moments after it, there's a very light whimper in the space about, we'll say, east.
So I will slide my hand into my pouch and pull out one of the darts, and I will clutch it in fangs fashion.
Yeah.
I'll kind of keep it close while I find a wall to put my side to so that I can look to the open area, and I will begin moving through the space toward the smacking.
You very methodically move down this hallway. It doesn't take you long to get to a much more open portion of this 3rd floor, where you see there's a very opulent personal space. It's rather bewildering, actually. There's at the far end of this really large room, there's what looks like several couches that are sort of drawn up in a bit of a horseshoe pattern, which that in and of itself is not strange. But against the far wall, there's a bed, like a proper gentleman's bed. And as you continue to trail your vision around the space, you can tell that the sound you're hearing it's obscured a little bit by the last piece of this wall section that is in front of you. It runs about 10 or 15 feet. So the room is large. It's almost like an L shape. And you're just at the fat bottom of the L. You haven't seen the long upper portion of it yet.
I see what you mean, yes.
But you can hear the gramophone, and you can hear this sort of random sound of leather cracking. And this rather disgusting now whimper and crying of someone else at the other end of it.
I probably unintentionally hiss a bit.
Well, this is very much a unfortunate sound, and your brain probably fizzles up with all sorts of different memories of former situations.
I grip the dart a little tighter, and I will also unfasten the catch on the machete almost mindlessly.
Mm-hmm.
And I probably get even lower and almost crawl toward the edge of the wall near the narrow space.
You crawl ever so slightly, and in your ear on the left-hand side, you hear,
"They don't deserve to live."
It's a voice you've heard before. It's a woman's voice, a matronly voice. It comes on in a whisper.
I pause. I mean, I don't say anything because that would be silly. But I will very slightly nod. And I probably tense like every fiber in my body and move forward with a little more certainty.
You get to the end of that wall piece. The whimpering has stopped. The crack of the whip has not. You start hearing the physical exertion from someone using a whip. And your eyes take in the full view of what is beyond that wall piece. It is, it's maddening. It's not horrific, even though it is. It's not stunning, even though it is. It doesn't hold your breath. It only confirms the needful thing which must occur. The flayed flesh at the bottom of this terrifyingly straight X, which has been propped up with this poor, likely innocent soul that has been strapped to it, all for the utter pleasure of a man wearing an officer's uniform, which doesn't really even fit him anymore. His rather saggy, late middle-aged form is starting to really struggle with the whip cracking. But whatever sickness lay inside of him won't let him stop.
I would like to use one of my pulp abilities.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it falls under Master of Disguise, in which I can throw my voice.
Yep.
I'm going to speak now, and I'm going to turn away from him, but I want my voice to come. Now, just so that I understand the layout, is the X facing me or is he facing me?
Oh no, the X is facing you. His back is to you.
Okay. I want the voice to come from the person strapped to that X.
Okay.
The cold hand of death, which grips the black hearts of the merciless, has come for you. Justice awaits beyond the grave, to which I will drag your screeching soul. I'm going to cover the distance between the two of us, and I'm going to shove that dart in the base of his skull.
Fair enough. So that is a fighting brawl roll. You'll be at advantage because obviously he will not be expecting to be attacked from behind.
But that 29 hard success is not.
Okay. Roll damage, and I will roll con.
I don't know what the damage is on it.
I would imagine if you're using it as essentially as a bladed weapon.
Oh, right. Well, it's going to do damage because it's dart.
It's
okay.
dart.
I wasn't sure what the. I guess you'll handle the other part.
I will.
So it's a D4. It's a knife. I'll just call it a knife, right? Mm-hmm. It's a 4. Hey.
Okay. And then roll a D6 for me.
It's a 5.
Okay. So you don't have to do much more than move in very succinctly and in a fluid motion, cock your arm back and drive it forward. And when it hits the base of his neck, there is this wonderful fleshy pop as the dart sticks in, and he turns, and in just this surprised, shocked look splashed over his face, grabs for the back of his head.
And when he turns around, I headbutt him in the nose.
Okay. You headbutt him, and he collapses onto the floor in just an absolute heap.
Is his victim awake, alive?
No and no. The young man here, strapped to this hideous piece of carpentry, has likely been it's not been the first time he has likely been strapped to it, just by the visual. It will be the last time, however.
So what I would like to do is I will gently and very delicately remove his victim from this device. And I will put them on, whatever, there's like a small bed or a side sofa or something soft to put them on.
There isn't so much a sofa, but the nearest thing for him to be placed on, which would be soft, would be this man's bed.
Okay. That's not far, is it?
No, it's probably about 8 or 10 feet total.
Yeah, I will carry him over there, and I'll kind of look at his face as I do so, get a feel for maybe who he was or how old he was.
He's probably early 20s, maybe mid-20s. Hands are a bit calloused from work, so are his feet. Probably had a relatively strong lower body. Not so much a defined upper body, but there's not a ton of fat on him.
So when I seat him, I'm going to prop his, like the uppermost part of his body up a bit with some pillows, and I'm going to whisper to him, "I want you to see justice get served," as I proceed to strap this man, this monster, to his own device.
Make me a POW roll.
That is a 1 out of 50.
Perfect. You begin strapping this man to this X. And you hear a tune you likely heard when you were a very small boy. And it's a very old spiritual. As you're strapping this man to this, what will become this justice, the previous occupant lays against the bed, and sitting near his feet is that matron spirit, humming and nodding as you work, just seeming to sit with this boy in his moments, however fleeting they may be.
I spent enough time looking at that boy that I would probably have a pretty good idea as to how long this has been going on, as far as like how old some Fiskars are.
Yeah.
How many years has it been?
At least 5. You wouldn't doubt that the boy likely is potentially a part of a family unit. Maybe his other half is living in the stables. Not uncommon.
Sure. So I'm going to do 2 things. I'm going to make sure that this whip is part of what I'm using to attach him to this thing. Like I'll wind it across both of his outstretched hands. Actually, you know what? I'm going to hang him upside down.
Okay.
And I will make sure that his feet are nice and secure with the
Sure.
whip kind of stretched across the top of the X. And to put it lightly, I am going to cut him 1,825 times. And that's one for every day of this child's life that he wasted.
With a blade or with the whip?
With my machete.
Oh, okay. So you're there for some time.
Yes.
Your quarry does not wake during it, right? Your quarry here, he's well passed out even through the pain. He bleeds tremendously.
Oh, yes.
No way to get around that, nor do you want to. But probably by about 1,000 or so, you can tell his body starts to struggle with the blood loss. And given that he's now covered and coated in his own blood, his body starts to rouse itself. And he coughs a bit, and then coughs a lot. And then you can see that horrifying X start to shake from his body tremors. He's not conscious yet.
No, he's calling to his end. I'm going to help him get there.
You do so. It isn't too much longer before he stops shaking entirely. He never makes it back to consciousness. The blood loss is too great. It pools below the X there, getting into the slats of the wood floor here. This whole time, this hum continues from the bed. And after a moment or two after your final cut, his soul leaves in a rather obvious fashion.
I will squeegee the blade.
Sure.
And swipe it across the room. And then I will slide it back into its sheath where it belongs.
You take a breath and turn back just to make sure that the room is otherwise unoccupied. There are now 2 corpses here. The bed no longer holds the woman. Her spirit had moved on.
She got what she came for.
She did. And your night is not yet over.
Is that phonograph still playing?
It is.
I have a weird question. How big is the phonograph?
It's pretty big.
Okay. I was just kind of curious because I know the doctor really wants one. I was kind of tempted to steal him a phonograph.
It's totally not something you can put in your pocket.
Okay, that's fine. I won't push it. But it'd really be a total waste if I let an opportunity to rob the rich go to waste.
Oh yeah. I mean,
since I'm already in his space, and he's a sicko, I'm going to see what the sicko is hiding in his area.
There's a personal office up here. It's not a business office per se, but there's a fair amount of cash on hand. There's probably
Yeah, I'm looking for personal stuff, boxes, safes, what have you.
Well, you don't find any safe up here.
Okay.
You do find a rather nice revolver
Could use another one.
and about 500 British pounds.
Thank you for your service.
Exiting stage left.
I'm going to bid the house adieu, and I think I will try. So I'm going to try to find an exit on the north wall, the one that's facing away from the front of the property.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to try to find an exit there on this floor.
Yeah.
If there's one of those wood boxes or what have you, the screens are on that side of the house.
Mm-hmm. And it's not a problem. You find your exit. With knowing the layout of the property, it's much easier to time up when the guard patrols come. And getting over the wall isn't difficult either.
So I will make my way back to my perch house, and I will secure the rest of my things and put my coat on.
Okay.
My safari jacket to cover up, all of the work that I put in. There's a lot of work.
Yes. And then I understand that you are going to go and see your charge there at Dr. Kafur's house.
Well, yeah, I can't just walk around covered in soldier officer.
Well, I mean, former officer likely.
Former officer. I will quietly make my way to Kafur's house, staying relatively inconspicuous. I'm not hiding. I'm pretty sure it's the middle of the night and I'm wearing dark clothing, so I'm not worried about somebody spotting gore on my pants or something, or my shoes. Yeah, we'll get to Kafur's, and I'm going to take the back door in when I get there.
Taking the back door in, you can see Jean-Malin is making tea. He startles a little bit when you come in. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you there.
I look around for cats.
You don't see any yet.
No visitors?
He reaches over and closes the door. No, close the door.
I shut the door. If you'll excuse me, I have to wash up. But if you're making tea, I would love a cup.
Certainly.
I'll be down in a minute. I go wash up. That's just something I have to do. I will clean all of the evidence of my night off my person.
Mm-hmm.
And, tuck the clothes into the bag inside my bag.
Okay. You come out and the tea is waiting for you.
So, progress?
A little. It hasn't been very long, but we're working on it.
I understand. Based on the amount of work involved, how long do you think it would take you to translate the rest of those scrolls from Kafur?
Probably another couple of days at least.
Okay. So here's our problem. There's more than a few reasons as to why you can't stay in Cairo.
All right.
However, I did promise you a job, and I'm going to keep my word. Have you ever been to America?
No.
Sip my tea. So we have people there that are very much in line with your field of study.
Oh.
Your field of interest. Yes. Remember, I told you, the people I'm working with are, in many cases, in artifact reacquisition and repurposing. So there's a lot of material there that someone with your level of education and expertise could probably stand to learn a lot from, assuming that you can keep your wits about you. As the nature of these things might be a little disturbing, much in the fashion of the things you've been encountering recently.
Well, I have learned a little along the way. I've also learned that sometimes it's best to take a break from some materials before they become too all-consuming.
So I'm going to put it, I'll be straight with you. You're familiar with the Penhu Foundation and their role in sponsoring this expedition that you were unceremoniously ejected from.
Yes.
We have a lot of reason to believe that they are up to something particularly nefarious. We don't know specifically what, but we know that it can't be good for anyone involved. So there may be some objects that were sent to America that were previously destined for Cairo and a few other locations, Shanghai, to mention a few, that were once the property of one Edward Gavigan, that are no longer his property.
Wow.
They're actually in America as we speak. And I think that it would be very beneficial to everyone involved if we had someone we could trust to get the work done who understands the importance of it there.
And that's me.
I don't see anybody else here.
All right. Truth be told, Egypt is too hot for me anyway.
Well, I wish I could tell you there were no cats in America, but sadly, it's just a myth. However, I'm sure that our contact there can help set you up with an accommodation that wouldn't disturb anyone.
Very well. I have no interest in staying here any further than I have to. The expedition has not done my reputation any good, and quite frankly, I would rather be rid of the sand as well.
Okay. And it's done. I'll send a telegram to America, New York specifically. I'll give you an address and enough resources to get you overseas.
All right.
You're going to communicate with no one.
Of course.
Once you have made it there, and I assume enough time has passed, I will reach out to you to see what sort of progress has been made and to make sure that you're doing well.
All right. I can do that.
I'll stand up, put the tea down and kind of walk over to him, and I'll sit next to him. I want you to understand something. I'm not doing this because I like you or because I care about you or what happens to you. We are at war. And if we want to come out of this with any semblance of humanity left, we need people like you to survive.
He kind of slowly nods.
I am not like you, which is why you need to go.
He nods a little hurriedly.
Now, I don't want you to leave right this second. I want you to finish your work for me. So I will be letting Dr. Kafur know that he'll be here for the next couple days, finishing this work, after which you're going to make yourself scarce.
Okay.
Can you do that?
Of course.
I don't expect this place will be under siege anytime soon, and you're not that big of a target at this moment. So, fingers crossed.
He looks a little scared.
I'm glad you're scared. You should be. If you hear someone open that door, run, because it's not me. I will finish the tea and stand up. Now, if you'll excuse me, I believe it's worth at this point paying a visit to your, I guess, the representative of your, burden.
You're going to see her?
She invited me to. Why shouldn't I?
He shivers.
Remember how you feel right now. That is what will keep you alive in the future.
I'm going to go back to work.
Make sure you get rest.
Okay. And your plan is to dip out and go see Nerys?
Yeah, are there all night food stands or anything like that? Are there I don't know if there are street vendors in the middle of the night.
No, not that sort of thing. You'd have to go to a jazz club on Emmerdale Dean Street or something like that theater district to be able to get a hold of drink or food or something like that.
Okay, then I will just take some of the. So I had set aside some of the food inside Kafur's, so I will put a little basket together for myself and include enough for another person. And I will make my way to the Blue Door.
You make your way to the Blue Door. You find it. It's relatively, with her directions, relatively easy to find. You wouldn't know it unless she had pointed it out, though. It looks somewhat nondescript. Inside, there is a very long stone spiral staircase that goes down to the underground level. And when it dumps out into this unused cistern, it kind of seems to go in a couple of different directions. But one thing you do notice when you get down here is there is already a feline presence.
What does it smell like?
What does it smell like down here? I mean, it smells like a unused cistern. So it's a little damp. It's a little dusty at the same time. The cats, however, seem to lead you in a specific direction. They all seem to flow almost like fish in that sense.
I'll raise an eyebrow. This is not totally unfamiliar. I saw something like this in a dream.
Indeed. And much like the dream, cats pick up along the way. And so suddenly there's 5 or 6, and then there's maybe 10. And the cistern leads into an unused sewer tunnel. And you come into a room that's about 20 by 20 of hewn stone. And there is in the middle of it, there is a statue, a very large one, that is old, made out of just kind of an older, somewhat cracking stone, where there is a elegant feline. And at the far wall, there is a small, what look like just pretty basic bedding supplies, a chair, and a dark robed figure.
At this point, I'm probably smiling just because I find this whole thing kind of fun. So yeah, I'm probably smiling more than I normally would as I walk in.
You've returned.
Well, for the first time, but yes. I was assuming that the invitation was open.
Certainly. If you're prepared for what comes next.
Well, what I really would like right now, it's been a very long night, and I was hoping to eat something. If you wouldn't mind, I brought enough to share.
Oh. Nerys gets up from the chair and unfolds a blanket, and she says, if you'd like to share with the rest of Bast's children, I don't see that would be a problem.
I'll head over and I guess sit on the blanket, unfurl everything that I brought. So it's probably a mixture of, some produce or rice, or if there was meat there, I probably would have grabbed it.
Yeah, it's mostly chicken and rice and maybe some sort of bread. Some very basics. Nerys doesn't eat a ton of it, but she does make sure to portion out some for cats in the nearby area, which do seem to, again, kind of continue to grow as soon as the food comes out.
Oh, I was certain. Yeah. So I will eat and generously share, basically until it's gone. And as I do so, I guess we can talk. So I'm sure that there's probably some sort of, thing that you feel that we might need to do, but it's all the same to you. I wouldn't know how to describe whatever you say might be coming or what I might need to prepare for. I just wanted to talk.
By all means.
You said that Bast favored me.
She seems to.
How would you know such a thing?
Because she speaks to me. I am a favored of her children. A priestess that walks in her steps.
But does she know me?
Oh? There are so many humans to know. When she says humans, you can tell that she definitely means a separation between the two of you.
Unlike you.
Unlike me, I have transcended that form.
I probably just kind of look astonished as I shove bread into my mouth.
I, long ago, was blessed by Bast to live a long and healthy life in service to her and her children, and to protect this land. That is my duty. That is Bast's true goal, is to protect the world from what is coming to eat it. There are 2 types of elders. There are those who have always been here, bound by earth and its mortal energies. And there are the other group, those who come from the cosmic beyond, those who sow their own sort chaos, who have upset Earth's balance. This was a millennia ago, but we have not solved such a balance yet, and so we are doing our best to protect what is left.
So, is the Black Pharaoh then one of the former or the latter?
Oh, the latter for certain.
But it always seems to sound like they're talking about a man.
You're familiar with pictures, paintings?
Yeah, sure.
You know that paintings can be made of people throughout their lives, yes? And they will appear different in these paintings?
Sure, they could dress differently at different times of their lives.
Certainly. Imagine this Black Pharaoh is a painting. He is an image. He is what he wants to show you. In other cultures, he may appear differently.
So, you're saying Never Ka and the one who dwells in shadow before the light comes, and Nyarlathotep, and all of these names are like personalities?
Think of them as faces. Many faces. Perhaps thousands.
I'd probably lose my appetite. There's too much, there's a lot of resonance here for me. I can't understand why one like Bast would favor me if I'm operating under the same veneer.
I think Bast sees I think she sees what she needs to see in you. There are many who say that cats have 9 lives, but fewer who walk that path. And so perhaps in a mysterious way, Bast sees you as walking that in your mortal life.
Probably I'll kind of mindlessly reach over and scratch a cat.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cat, so they probably enjoy it for about 3 seconds and then...
Yep, I only scratch for about 3 seconds. You know, I remember thinking when we were seeing the cats, how comical it is for them to treat me as one of their own, because in their heart of hearts, they're just little killers. And I'll like smile at one. I mean, you know, you're a cat, you're furry, you're kind of funny looking, but
her eyebrow goes up.
But you're built for one purpose. I'm just probably still looking at the same cat when I'm saying this. And you enjoy it, don't you?
Certainly. It's very rewarding.
I feel like I should feel shame, but I don't.
Shame for what?
For feeling the same.
Oh.
I've bathed in blood tonight.
I can smell it.
I don't want to serve, but I don't want to be alone.
Well, Bast favors who they favor. Just because you're looked after. Just because her eyes, watch your path, doesn't mean that they will force you to walk their way. With Bast, there is always choice.
Independence.
Oh, of course. For most of her servitors, yes.
I will kind of finish tidying up the stuff that we were eating, pack the whatever containers away, ball things up. I will get to my feet and offer my hand.
Doesn't take your hand, but she stands up on her own, nods to you.
You asked if I was ready to do what must be done. You said that there were things that you could share with me. I wish to know. I need to know.
You think you need to know?
I don't know if I don't.
Yes, unless your brain decides that you do.
Better to be prepared.
There are incantations which I could show you. A quick study might be able to pick them up in maybe a night, provided you are willing to forego sleep.
Well, I'm wide awake.
Very well. I will show you a simple but powerful incantation, one that might be able to assist you on the path that you choose. It will be an arduous task, though. Strenuous.
Most worth doing are.
Then let us remove the mat and begin. She rolls up the blanket and heads back towards the statue, and she very carefully lights incense around the statue and begins kind of collecting small candles and lighting the space up a bit. And she returns to you and stretches. Like she stretches her body out. And as she does so, she sheds the robe and stands before you in her full glory. A very toned and supple body, which slowly begins to turn and grow.
I don't breathe, blink, or speak.
You watch her through a very strange series of motions extend her form, and her body goes through a dynamic change. You don't really hear the bones stretch or snap, or there's no growl. There's nothing that would remind you at all of the creatures that you saw in northern England. But after this process, a dark-skinned, dark fur covered being stands before you, complete with panther head and big yellow and green eyes.
Is it standing or is it on fours?
It's standing. Its legs have gone through a change. It's a very strange change. It has haunches, but yet can still stand on 2 feet. The legs are a little strange.
Yeah, it's got the same type of rear facing knees as launching legs.
Yes.
Good for propelling.
Oh yeah.
These are push legs as opposed to pull legs.
Uh-huh.
Apparently she's rear-wheel drive. Awesome. I probably stand there. I stand there dumbfounded, mouth slightly agape.
She's much taller now too, so she's probably 7.5 feet tall.
Same thing, but looking up.
In her very silky voice, she intones, "Follow my movements very closely and dance with Bass this evening."
I will slowly nod, and I will take the time to remove my vest and my belt and kind of all my boots, like everything that would be in my way, basically.
She starts dancing around this statue, first doing circular movements, and then you finally see a rhythm to what she is doing. It is far easier to handle, you imagine, with her form, right? Those legs make this whole process way easier. But you see her give over herself to this dance. And she's weaving a circular pattern, wheels within wheels, around this statue.
So one of the things I'm good at is emulation. So I understand her form is alien, but I can pantomime.
You can sure act. So why don't you act for me?
That is a hard success, 16 under 74.
Very good. You begin to move in time. And time itself seems to dilate. You don't really even remember how long you danced for. But the room is filled at the end of it with cats that sit on this outer edge, staring at the two of you, moving back and forth. And she begins to do movement in the opposite direction. So you moving clockwise and her moving diasil, and you seem to weave together. And you start feeling your heart pound in your chest. Whether it's from the physical exertion or whether it's from the energy she seems to be raising. This area was cold, except for the places where she had candles. It was mostly an underground temperature. But it is a furnace now after this movement and dancing. And she brings you together towards the base of the statue. And she brings you down to the place where the statue's feet hit the ground. And she starts showing you this mystical writing that sits at the base of the statue. It's not English, it's not French, it's not even Arabic. It is something else entirely. And you need to make an intelligence roll.
It's a 55 under 65.
You gather a secret. It's whispered there at the base of the statue. It is something you are not likely to forget. It gives you an opening into their world, a series of words which can be spoken to have a desired effect. Black Cat speaks to you this evening. And beside you, Reese does her best to make sure that you are prepared for the outcome. This spell.
Okay.
So she's there with you, kind of holding on to you to make sure that you don't fall over. And I'm going to have you make a sanity roll for me.
That is a 36 under 58.
All right.
The number used to be so much higher.
It's true. That's very, very true. So you have learned a contact spell.
Okay.
She gives you a method of contacting Bast.
Ooh. Like directly?
Hmm?
Okay.
And she tells you that should you need the mother, should you need Bast and her guidance, you can contact her.
Is she here now?
Nerese says she is always with me.
I only have one question for her.
Ask, perhaps I can find you an answer.
Is it enough to continue severing the limbs of all of these far-reaching creatures that have corrupted humanity to halt their plans?
Nerese looks at you very directly and says, humanity does not fight to win. Humanity fights to survive.
Right. So, if we kill enough of these bastards, will we survive?
She believes so.
And watch and see what I will do. That's kind of to her, kind of to the statue.
Well, I'm certain her eyes will be on you.
And you?
I have other duties.
I know I keep saying it, but I'm sure that you're aware that there's much going on here.
I am aware. And what I know is that a direct assault against Nefrenka's agents would likely land me dead. I have already scratched Omar once. I will not attempt again.
She says his name, I bristle, probably shudder a bit. He's a powerful man, if he can be called a man anymore.
I do not believe he can. But my whispers tell me that Omar has other plans. They may not align with what others think they do.
You mean he might be rogue? Might be going off book?
Nefrenka, Nyarlathotep, whatever you like to call the being. He is also called the Crawling Chaos. His servitors sometimes do chaotic things which cannot be explained, all with the blessing of the mad god in their ears. I believe that they want to raise Queen Nyarlathotep from the grave. I believe this is why the mummy has gone missing, which even I have heard about. But I do not know that his plan is what his followers have been told.
It wouldn't be beyond these beings to lie.
No, not at all. But Egypt was once ruled by Nefrenka. Although, many years before this, it was ruled by something else.
Something?
This is Egypt. Egypt is the land of serpents. They have great power here.
What kind of serpents?
Asps, cobras, but in the mystical sense, the father of snakes once ruled these lands.
And is the father of snakes one of the former or the latter?
Oh, the former.
Just to be clear, the former was the same line as Bast, right?
Yes, we would call them elders. They have their own hierarchy of infighting, but the difference is that the snake calls Earth home just as the cat does. It does not want to see its wanton destruction.
So they would be allies, perhaps? Or non-combatants?
The latter is best. Friends between cats and snakes are difficult. There is ages of mistrust.
Can't imagine why.
But they would not be openly hostile to one another, provided there was a larger enemy, which in this case there is.
And you believe that there are agents of this god at play as well?
Oh, for certain. They want Egypt just as much as he does.
How would I know them?
How would you know them? Well, their servitors, their followers, usually greet the morning sun.
I probably drop the sack I'm holding. And I will hum that tune because I know it.
Which one?
The one that Maeve sings every morning.
Oh.
I've heard it every morning.
Yuri's tilt her head a little bit.
Like that?
It's not a tune I know. We don't hear it very often down here. But if you know the tune, then you know someone who knows it.
Does this King of Snakes have a name?
Yig.
Suppose I'll find out one way or the other.
For now, drink your water. Take your exhaustion.
I probably at this point feel all of the fatigue setting in.
Yeah. It you can feel like when she says drink your water, like your legs get wobbly.
Sit down. The group I was traveling with have ventured to the pyramids to get to the bottom of this missing mummy and an expedition that's traveling there.
A dangerous place. If you are to go to them, then you should rest this evening.
I look around. Here?
Certainly. You'll be safe here. This is a temple to Bast.
I haven't felt safe in a very long time. I probably lay down on the floor, like kind of just where I am, and look at the ceiling and say, I don't know that I have ever felt safe.
Perhaps tonight you will.
I'm assuming I just pass out
Pretty much.
with some cats.
With some cats. Well, thank you, Sam, for joining us this evening on this episode of Masks of Nyarlathotep. I'm certain that when you wake in the morning, you have all sorts of fun things to get to, and we look forward to seeing what happens next.
Me too.
And to our listeners and to our Patreon backers who help support the show, we couldn't thank you enough. If you're listening to this and you haven't decided yet or haven't known where to go, check us out on Patreon. That's patreon.com/theoldwayspodcast. Stop by, check out the show, help create some wonderful things for these, or not so wonderful for that matter, things for these investigators to get into. Other than that, though, we'll see you next episode.